Hello and many thanks for joining us on this edition of the program, People, Politics and Power. Now, as President Bola Ahmed Tinubu marks the midpoint of his administration, Nigeria stands at a critical juncture. The question on the lips of many citizens is simple but pressing. Are we safer today than we were 2 years ago? From the forests of Zamfara to the highways of the southwest and the metropolis of the southeast, insecurity continues to cast a long shadow over national life. Kidnapping for ransom, banditry, farmer-herder conflicts, and insurgent attacks persist despite repeated assurances and high-level security meetings at the presidential villa. The administration promised decisive action, intelligence-driven operations, and a reformed security architecture. The government launched Operation Safe Haven, appointed service chiefs, and pushed for new military procurements. Yet for many, the realities on the ground remain grim. On this edition of the program, we shall take a sober look at the security sector, the gains, the gaps, and the governance behind it all. Are the reforms mere optics, or do they mark the beginning of a more secure Nigeria? What role has coordination between federal and sub-national actors played in either compounding or confronting the crisis? And crucially, where do we go from here? Join us as we unpack the midterm performance on security and hold a mirror to one of the most consequential portfolios of this administration. I have joining me on the program Mr. Mukhtar Madobi. He's a research fellow at the Center for Crisis Communication. And he's also a student at the Nigeria Defense Academy, NDA. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, sir, for having me in your list.
Also joining us is Dr. David Okoro. Dr. Okoro is the Chief Security Strategist at the International Institute for Security and Governance Studies. A familiar face, of course, on this program. Thank you so much, Dr. Okoro, for joining us.
Again. Thank you.
We're also joined virtually by Dr. Ndu Nwokolo. Dr. Nwokolo is the Managing Partner, Nestia, an international development consulting firm. Dr. Nwokolo, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Welcome. Now, let's set the ball rolling and the stage for our discussion with this special report on the state of security in Nigeria after 2 years of the Tinubu administration.
When President Bola Ahmed Tinubu took over power, securing Nigeria was one of his key priorities.
We shall defend the nation from terror and all forms of criminality that threaten the peace and stability of our country.
Upon assumption of office, the president, after appointing the new service chiefs, charged them to swing into action, while weapons and other arsenals were injected into the inventories of the military. At first, it seemed that Nigeria was experiencing relative peace, except for some worst-affected regions still facing pockets of attacks. However, 2 years down the line, Nigeria's security situation now reveals a concerning trend, with various regions facing unique challenges. For instance, in the northeast, Boko Haram remains a significant threat, with reports of regrouping, attacks on military targets, and as claimed by the state governor, holding down of territories.
Marte local government area of Borno State consists of over 300 towns and villages. And now we are having only one standing village. We cannot maintain one standing village. That means we lost a whole local government area to insurgents.
In the Northwest, new and emerging terrorist organizations have created fresh complications for the authorities, while armed bandit groups have sustained their stronghold on rural farming communities. Their terror has extended to the North Central, with states like Benue and Plateau worse hit, and deaths piling up in the hundreds in Enugu and Ebonyi states in the southeast.
The most effective way to check that is to ask yourself, do Nigerians feel safer now than when the president came in? The sight and sound of what we see are lesser. Like the past month, over 1,000 people were killed in a state of, we are not fighting a war, but people are wasted every day in different parts of the country. So yeah, you might say, yes, the level of kidnapping on the road and all that have abated, but the fear of insecurity is still there. People are still afraid because, see, the definition of security is freedom from fear and want. So the question is, are people less afraid now than they were when the president came in?
The issue is that whenever you are talking about security challenges, you tend to neglect other factors, the root causes and those factors that trigger the security challenges. Now, unless you address them, you continue to have that. I would rather say yes and no. And it's a work in progress. We are not there yet, but I think we will get there. However, there are conditions that we have to look at. Up to now, there is issue of politicization of security in this country. And unless we are all on the same page when it comes to security challenges, we'll continue to be moving in a vicious cycle.
Available data from next year's Nigeria Violent Conflict Database from May 2023 to April 2025 reveals that there were about 2,017 incidents, while 7,120 were casualties. 4,209 people were kidnapped, with North Central recording the highest, followed by Northwest and then Northeast.
How much have we invested in our policing system within the last 25 or 26 years in terms of number, in terms of training, in terms of equipment? Take, for instance, do you think an average policeman in this country is well equipped, well trained to deal with the crimes of the 21st century? You know, just like his other counterpart. Then what is it that is available to, you know, the other security forces, the armed forces and other security organizations?
The situation has triggered an alarm, with President Tinubu directing a review of the national security strategy, emphasizing the need to end violence and restore peace. The National Assembly, too, seemed to have woken up, with the Senate set to convene a national security summit, few years after that of the House of Representatives. This is what the Tinubu administration thinks about security, as presented by the Minister of Defense, Mohammed Badru, a few weeks ago.
Troop has also restored peace to hundreds of communities, and thousands of our people have returned to their ancestral homes. For instance, from May 2023 to February 2025, our troops have neutralized 13,543 terrorists and criminals, arrested 17,469, and rescued 9,821 hostages. Meanwhile, 124,408 Boko Haram/ISWAP terrorist combatant fighters and their families surrendered.
To re-energize the push against violent non-state actors, a new national security strategy was unveiled. But a major concern is that the huge defense spending is not yet yielding commensurate results. Overall, while the government asserts progress in tackling insecurity, the reality on ground suggests that the country still faces significant security challenges, with worsening conditions in different parts of the country.
That report by our defense correspondent says the stage for our discussion. And straight away, Dr. Okolo, let me bring you in. And I cannot but ask this question. 2 years after, are we safer in Nigeria than we were in 2023?
I mean, one could obviously say no, because data don't lie. If we are relying on data from all available points that we have collected over the years in the country, not just the one next year has released, but the one other agencies like us has released, is obviously that we could say, no, we are not really safer. But qualitatively, could we say that it was a bit better than what it was last 2 years? Yes, maybe slightly better. But that seems to have been eroded in the last 3-4 months with the killings that we've experienced in the North Central and in the Northwest. So if we look at it in terms of the data, no, Nigerians don't feel safer, because it seems that it's almost like 6.5 a dozen. So the situation is nearly the same. I mean, that's the way to put it in a very, let me say, diplomatic way.
Okay, so we'll come back to you to tell us why you think that is so. But let me bring in Dr. Okoro at this point in time. Is Nigeria and Nigerians safer today than they were 2 years ago?
I think that if you ask me straight away, the answer is blowing the wind. I mean, like I said, security, definition of human security says freedom from fear and want. And Nigerians less afraid now. Can you wake up by 9 o'clock now and say you are going to Kaduna by road? Can you travel from here to Benue State without being afraid? Can you go to Plateau State? So the visuals, the optics, and the sounds you hear tells you that, yeah, initially, yes, there were initial move as soon as the government came in with the new appointment and all that. But I think gradually we have rolled back to where we used to be, or even beyond that, because you see the killings in Plateau and the killings in Benue have not abated. People are being killed.
Even in Taraba.
In Taraba, people are being killed. As we talk, Boko Haram have come back fully, taking communities, pushing back our military. In Niger State, there are swaths of land where there is no government at all, where bandits are complete and terrorists are completely in control. So when you look at the system the way it is today, yeah, government have made some effort. I must say that there is better coordination now among the military in terms of the war. I mean, the Air Force is becoming more effective, taking more effective collaboration with the Army and the intelligence community. So in terms of collaboration, it's better now. Coordination is better now. But overall, there are a lot of challenges. One of the things I will quickly say, if you ask me whether there is the situation is better now, the question you would then ask yourself, have we injected more men into the front? Have we injected more equipment? Because a country that is in war, if you want to see a significant shift in terms of victory, in terms of pushing back the enemy, one of the things you need to do is to put in more assets in terms of men and equipment. But we're not seeing all that. How many men have been recruited into the police over the past 2 years? How many men have been recruited into the military over the past 2 years? How many men have been recruited in the security sector over, services, the intelligence services over the past 2 years? How much equipment have been procured? How much drones? How much technologies? Because if you want a shift, if you want to see victory, then you must also, there must be a commensurate injection of assets, which we have not seen. So if you are thinking that you're going to have push back the criminals, it's a pipe dream, because the way with that to achieve that does not exist. We just move men around. You have appointed good men, good NSA, good CDS, good CDI, and all that. But the equipment they need to work with is not on ground. And then the big elephant in the room is political interference in security sector, where politicians determine who is to be appointed and who is to be posted to where, and what equipment to be bought, where it should be bought from, and all that. So we have a lot of problems that are in that sector that need to be addressed. It's not enough for the president to regularly, just like Buhari used to do, call all the service chief, come to my office, let us talk. It's not a matter of talk, it's a matter of action, political action, deploying resources. And then the other aspect of it is that even the resources that have been deployed, so much have been deployed to the sector, what has happened to the money? And people are really not asking that question. We've deployed so much. And we're not seeing the drones, we are not seeing technology, we are not, the governor of Borno State made the point to say that even in the state, this is what he says, the chief executive of the state, that what he sees is that the bandits and terrorists are better equipped than the official security and military. That is debatable, but we should give it to him because that is what he sees in a situation where our military are overrun by bandits and terrorists. The military formation being overrun within our country by terrorists. And it has not happened once, it has not happened twice, it has not happened the third time. The Air Force, the Army, the defense, the intelligence sector, all these are overrun by. So you then ask the question, are we winning the war? The question I think is, no, we're not winning the war.
So Mokhtar, let's bring you in as a young Nigerian. What were your expectations 2 years ago when this administration came on board in terms of security? Have those expectations been met? If they have not been met, what do you think is missing?
Actually, when this administration of President Bola Tinubu come on board, there are a lot of expectations that the security challenges with doubling the country will be subdued. And he started with the appointment of a new service chief as well as the national security advisor, which they are capable of doing their works. But actually, looking at the current trajectory about what is happening, especially in Northeast, North Central, as well as Northwest, where there are activities of bandit, insurgent, ISWAP, as well as emerging terrorist group. I don't think the expectation of Nigerians, including myself, has been met. Actually, no. For example, look at the resurgence of ISWAP and Boko Haram recently. If you look at from January to this May, apart from that, they have just they are coming off acquiring more power, and they are using sophisticated weapons. They are leveraging on technology, especially drones, which is a form of modern asymmetric warfare. Apart from that, look at the emergence of another terrorist group in the name of Laukurawa that are operating around Sokoto and KB axis. Apart from that, look at April. Another just terrorist group also emerged, operating in North Central. That is the Mahmuda group. So looking at all this, the resurgence of ISWAP and Boko Haram, the emergence of Lakurawa, the emergence of Mahmuda group, despite the fact there are other terrorist groups, for example, like Ansaru, still operating around Kogi and Niger State. So I don't think the expectation has been met, and the government still need to do more. Even though there are some measures that have been put in place, we can see how they are equipping the Nigerian Army Force with some kind of aircraft they are injecting into their order of battle. Even though last week the Chief of Army Staff also commissioned some ammo tank in Maiduguri. So even there are a lot of things that they need to be done in order to subdue this
so
security
for you, what do you
element.
think is responsible for this resurgence and the emergence of new groups? Is it that they think, for instance, that, oh, the Nigerian security forces are weakened and they are taking advantage of that, or that they have become more sophisticated than they were previously?
Of course.
And that is giving them the courage to move beyond where they were 2 years ago.
Okay, so let's look at resurgence of Boko Haram first. Actually, if you look at the last 2 years or like 1 year ago, the situation in Northeast has been calm. People are jubilating that peace and security is returning to where it has to be. But suddenly, if you are during that period, there is so much ravaging activities of bandits around northwestern region. So it was believed that the Nigerian armed forces deployed some of the assets that they were using in northeast and deploy them back to northwest in order to counteract the activity of those ravaging bandits. The use of technology by these terrorists in form of drones, where they use it to conduct surveillance and also carry out attacks, as well as utilizing these social media handles, where they propagate their ideas, trying to gain public sympathy and call for public support, and also radicalize the vulnerable youth. It's a kind of modern asymmetric warfare that these terrorists are using, which I think is one of the reasons that they are trying to recruit more fighters. Apart from that, there is also influx of foreign fighters that has already been said by the Nigerian military. For example, even as of yesterday, the commander of theater operation had stated that they have arrested 4 Pakistani in Nigeria. They are terrorists, they are collaborating with terrorists, and they are helping this ISWAF and Boko Haram in using this drone to conduct surveillance and attacks. They also help them in training as well as improvisation of IEDs, as well as setting traps for militaries. Because if you look at it from January to now, there is increase of attacks or ambush on military patrols by these terrorists. They increase this kind of guerrilla warfare, even though they have been using it earlier, but now it is more intense. Integrating it with technology, as well as even destroying bridges, because there are some communities in Borno, in Yobe, where some of these terrorists used to blow up bridges to cut off the communities from one another. Maybe they're trying to undermine the troops' mobility. Maybe whenever they are carrying attacks, so the troops will not be able to reach out to them. So I think these are some of the reasons why this insecurity continue to linger in Nigeria. Apart from that, there is also this lack of paying attention, because we know these Mahmuda terrorists, they have been operating around Kayenji Dam, as well as part of Kwara for almost 5 years ago. They have been there supporting locals in this providing security and access to fishing as well as farming. They were there almost for 5 years ago. Also look at this lab.
And they were not detected? Or they were detected and nothing was done?
So if there is good intelligence, I think they should have been detected. If they have been detected, the government should take the necessary action in order to curtail the situation before it snowballs as how we are seeing it now. Now they have started conducting attacks on civilians. So also the Lakurawa, they were said that they came from around Mali, Chadi. They were initially non-violent, as they said, violent herders. So they were known to arrive in Nigeria since around 2018, 2019. There is that intelligence. So what the security forces need to do, since they have this kind of intelligence, they should implement measures, or proactive measures, in order to curtail the situation even before it becomes worse, as we are seeing it now.
Now, Dr. Owokolo, the president, in his message to Nigerians on May 29, did admit that there are new security challenges, but there are also reports of some successes, especially in the northwest and in the northeast region. But there is also the issue of increased intelligence-driven operations. The president says so, that there is a greater synergy among the security forces, and there is a lot more intelligence-driven operations in this area. But from what Mukhtar has said, if the Lakurawa and the other groups have been operating in certain parts of the country, particularly in the north-central area of the country, for over 5 years, before they became or before they emerged as a violent group, can we really say that our intelligence system has been operational, functional, and on top of its game?
Thank you. I mean, there's a way to look at this, which is what really is intelligence without action. So that's why some of us will always say that our problem is not about early warning, that our problem is about early response. And this has a lot to do with our political economy, the way our governance system has been structured, the way we do things as a people. So, like if you look at military engagement, they will always break military engagement into 3. They will tell you about, oh, this is a strategic level or strategical level, and then they will tell you about the operational level, and then they tell you about tactical level. And I've always maintained that our problem has never been about tactical level. Our problem has always been at that strategical level, which has a lot to do with national policy, which has a lot to do with deployment of resources, which is equally very political in nature. So what we're experiencing is a situation where even if they knew they were operating there, what did they do about it? So a situation where someone is looking at national security from a religious point of view, from an economic point of view, from an ethnic point of view. If I act on this, how would this affect my people and not Nigeria as a country? So we are dealing with a situation where the Nigerian state is reduced to a nation state because an ethnic group has an interest. So because of that, the interest and purpose of the Nigerian state is not acted upon. So at that strategic level, we have an issue. And when you have an issue at that strategical level, it definitely affects your operational level. Then you cannot even talk about the tactical level. So this is the way things have started unfolding and is affecting whatever thing we do. So when you say, oh, do we have problem with our intelligence? I want to say no, that it's not that we have problem with our intelligence. The problem is when we get those intelligence, what do we do with them? How do we deploy them? How do we use them? So situation where we do not use them, even when we get them, what's the essence? What's the result? So this is what you've seen over the years. Most of these things we are currently facing, we knew 20, 30 years ago. Go back to the 60s and the 70s, the farmer-herder conflict was flat. Nobody acted on it, nobody did anything. And today it has developed into a full-blown violent conflict, something we could have nipped on the bud and deal with it as of that period. Take every conflict in the country, from the terrorism we're experiencing in the Northeast, to the banditry we're experiencing in the Northwest, to the farmer-herder conflict that we're experiencing in the North Central, to the kidnapping going on across all the country, to the secession agitation in the Southeast, to the cultism and cult group activities in the South, including the militant agitation in the South, the pipeline vandalization in the South, to the kidnapping and other issues we have in the Southwest. We knew about all this 10, 15 years ago. Nobody acted on it. Why? Because you have either lack of political will, or you have a situation where politics has been used as an instrument of not acting upon issues. So that's what we are seeing today. So if you have a situation where we are saying, oh, we want to look at our security sector and find a way to reform it, you're not just reforming the security sector, you're reforming everything connected to the security sector, including your judicial system, including your custodial system. I'll give you an instance. A situation where somebody is arrested and he's kept in police detention for more than 2 months before you take the person before you charge the person, he stays another 3 months, 4 months, or even 6 months awaiting trial before the person goes to finally convicted. The judicial processes become very difficult. So most times you find out that even the police and other institutions of the state apparatus that are supposed to act on this begin to not work where they have to work. And these are some of the strategic issues that you need to weave all of them together when you're talking about security sector reform. So as we sit today to say 2 years of President Tinubu, what is it that we are seeing? You might look at the data. They will tell you, because to most of us, deaths and all these things are mere statistics, because Nigerians are just listening, they move ahead because they even know how to act. But if you begin to interrogate most of these things from a qualitative point where people talk about most of these things, it's more than what you see as those figures. They are deeper than that.
Dr. Okoro, I need you to speak to some of the issues that Dr. Mokolo has raised. And that has to do with the politicization of security, the ethnicization of security, the religionalization of security. We've been talking about these things for years. We have always identified these issues and challenges over the years. But nobody appears to want to tackle them head on, either for political reasons, for ethnic reasons, for religious reasons, or other special interests that are beyond the comprehension of the ordinary Nigerian who seeks safety and security of his life and of his property.
Well, this is a fact before us that in Nigeria, security it's encumbered by issues of religion, by ethnicity, by other considerations. You're here, the history that we have where certain actions were taken by Jonathan government, for instance, and some people came out and said, you want to kill all of us. The military were out at that time to nip Boko Haram in the bud. And the leadership of a particular state came forward and said, you want to kill, you are killing our people and all that. There was so much noise. And then the government of Jonathan pulled back a bit. Then Boko Haram came in with full force and they started killing those very leaders of that particular community or that particular state. Then they shouted that you are abandoned us, you are allowing these criminals to kill us. So issues of religion have been very strong in affecting our security, where you really can't, the security commanders really can't move because you have to be very careful what you do. You might get a phone call, somebody saying, don't go there, don't take this particular action. Then the second is in the appointment of commanders and a headship of the various security agencies. Politics is key. Religion is key. Ethnicity is an issue. And then the guy who takes over as leader, when he gets there, he also have to implement security, his agenda in being influenced by religion, by ethnicity, and other considerations. So truly, extraneous forces are very much present in the security governance in Nigeria, and it is not doing us any good at all. It's not doing us any good at all. And I think that no matter what security strategy we want to adopt, if we don't address these issues of governance, we don't address issues of politics in security sector and ethnicity and religion, if we don't address that, they've always been here with us. And we are where we are because of these issues from the early 60s. The issue of religion has been there, the issue of ethnicity has been there, and it has gradually, cumulatively gotten us to where we are today. And sometimes I wonder how. Because when this president was elected, and I was invited some other channel to talk about it, my concern was, will he have the courage to address the issues? Because the issues are there before us, but they are huge. When you are pulling it, you are pulling the very foundation of Nigeria. Does he have the courage to be able to deal with these issues of religion, ethnicity, and politics? So they are a key factor. So Nigeria, not just the men, which is lacking, not just equipment, which is also lacking, but these critical issues that influences the implementation of security in our country need to be there.
So where will that political will come from?
Well, again, it has to come with, we have to agree. For instance, I always ask the question, do the leadership in the North actually want an end to insecurity? If they want an end to insecurity, that decision have to come from them to say, look, we are ready now to address security in our environment, because you are talking about some person's environment. It is when that person gives you the leeway to say, we are willing to collaborate to address security in our environment, that you can succeed. But if the environment seems to be, the leadership seems not to be very enthusiastic about addressing those issues, you come from outside, they will resist you. You want to take the step to address it, they will resist you. And so what we are finding, we are talking with tongue, how do you put it now? We are talking with a tongue in cheek. But the real truth is that if the ethnic leaders, political leaders, intelligentials in this part of the country want an end to insecurity, they know what to do. They know what to do.
Mokhtar, do you agree with that? I mean, you are a fellow of the Center for Crisis Communication. Let's talk about how we have, as a people, north, south, west, east, how we have handled these issues of crisis communication. Is it true that some of our leaders, at whatever level, are complicit in the crisis we have on our hands?
So, if you look at it, the issue of insecurity is like kind of a whole of society approach. It cannot be solved alone by kinetic approach as been by the military. For example, for each kind of security challenges, kinetic approach by the can only 25% can only be solved by using military hard power, while the remaining 75% have to come from other soft power approach. And using this soft power approach, a lot of community stakeholders, as earlier said by the speaker, the traditional rulers, the community leaders, the civil society organization, as well as the residents, they must work in hand. They must work together in order to address this issue. For example, one of the critical issues that has been undermining the operation of the troops is this issue of informant. Because these people usually, they blend within the community. They leak some vital information about the movement of the troops to the terrorists. So if you don't address this issue, I don't think this security can be solved, because as the military are doing their own fight, then the very civilian that you are trying to protect, now they are exposing you to danger, meaning they are revealing your secret to your enemies. So that is why the issue, a lot of things you see that the troops were ambushed, were killed, maybe as they are, maybe when they receive a call that there is a kind of attack, so maybe on their way they will be ambushed. So definitely there are some kind of these fifth columnists, even within the community, as well as within the, even last week, Zulum also raises alarm, said that there are some collaborators and informants within the military as well as the politicians. And I can recall also the former Chief of Defense Staff, Leo Irabo. He also raised the issue, said that there are fifth columnists within the military. There are some people that used to leak information. So I think if we don't nip this crisis on the issue of this intelligence, and also the community leaders to come together, they know these people who are committing these crimes, they live within their domains. Most of the time they used to blend within the civilian population. So if we don't expose the identity of these criminals from within the community, any effort that the government put in place or the military, it will no longer see the light of the day. It will be undermined. So there needs to be this kind of whole of society approach. Everybody needs to come on board in terms of intelligence gatherings, because residents can also be source of intelligence, as well as maybe community sensitization. The military have been doing a lot in this soft power approach through their social community, social corporate responsibilities, where they used to engage with civilian population, building some roads, sensitization, and a lot of things, trying to bring everybody on board. So unless also the community leaders also show the will and the determination, because there are some cases whereby you see some traditional leaders were arrested as accomplices to these bandits or terrorists. So there are also this kind of issue. So unless we agree that we want to solve this issue,
How do we get this consensus, this agreement, especially where you have people who are benefiting from this situation, from this crisis? Because it's been said in so many places that sometimes, I mean, banditry and even terrorism has become a franchise.
No, it's financial gain attached to the...
Yes.
Yes, it serves as incentive. So I think if the government can be able to block the sources of funds for these terrorists, so that, for example, they use money in order to recruit fighters. They also use money to pay wages for their fighters. So if you can block the source of their fund, which serve as their source of oxygen, which keep them alive, I think they can no longer be able to recruit more fighters. They can't use this to buy more weapons. So at that point, you are weakening them, you are demoralizing them. So when at that point, you can then empower the military with the necessary technology, the weapons, and the intelligence and the will then they will be able to crush these terrorists. I think.
Yeah, I was going to make a point to that. You're talking about the funding. Banditry and terrorism has become an economy. Yes. People benefit from it. That's why traditional rulers are involved. That's why military security people are involved. That's why there are informants. There are armorers. There are all sorts of people that are involved in that ecosystem. So dismantling it is going to take more than just a wish, because there's huge resources. Now, the issue of where do they get funds from? Who funds these insurgents and bandits? There are several sources. Some have said, like the CDS once said, who funds? He postulated that there are external support. But beyond the external support, studies have shown that the mining of precious minerals, solid minerals, you know where these conflicts are taking place, usually they have a lot of minerals that are there. Even in the Lake Chad region, the Boko Haram and their gangs are trading in fish. So it's a huge market, and they make a lot of money from this. Now, from kidnapping, they make money from kidnapping for ransom. They make money from all sorts of sources like this. Now, the money they make, they use it to acquire weapons. They use it to acquire technology. They use it to pay more. They are recruiting young people every day to their fold, and they are paying them well. This is our dilemma. While the terrorists are acquiring modern, up-to-date equipment and technology, we are not doing the same thing at that level. We are buying few here and there, but the proportion that is needed to overwhelm the criminals, we are not there. Second, they are recruiting. They have enough money to recruit and pay well. And so more people are joining. And for the Nigerian government, we are not recruiting in that same proportion. The police have been trying to recruit 10,000 men for the past 2 years. 10,000. And I always say that if the police employs 10,000 men for the next 10 years, we'll have just recruited 100,000 men in 10 years. That is, by 2035, we'll have just been able to recruit additional 100,000 men to join the Nigerian police. That's a joke. We should be talking of being able to recruit 100,000 men to join the police every year. And we do the same thing for the military. And then we ensure that equipment is bought for them. Otherwise, we'll just keep talking. And the criminals, the bandits, the terrorists are going to be more resourced, more daring. Why are they so confident to attack military formations? It's because they have carried out their own intel, and they know they can overwhelm the military institution, the military bases, and they do it because they have confidence that they have equipment, they have weapons to be able to do it, and they have successfully done it. The other leg of it is you have foreigners coming to participate in this, because they say where the carcass is, there the vulture will gather. West Africa is a conflict zone, and so fighters from around the world see this place as a good place to practice, so they come. And many more are already here. So the fact that the Pakistanis have been arrested or be found, it's just that it's been happening now. There are Arabs, there are Pakistanis, there are all sorts of people. There are Ukrainians that are operating here. And why are they here? They get good pay. Boko Haram and the terrorist insurgents can pay can pay very well, because the more land they are able to acquire, the more access they have to solid and precious minerals, which they then sell to finance more of their. So we need to, the government of Nigeria need to be more intentional and determined in the next 2 years to ensure that there are more resources is deployed, and that resources are properly managed. And the president must be concerned about this.
All right, Dr. Okolo, as we begin to round up our discussion, let's look at the next 2 years of this administration. We know, for instance, that the Nigerian Senate is planning a national security summit. In fact, the House of Representatives did have a national security summit about 1.5 years ago. We don't know what has come of that, what efforts have been made to implement the outcomes of that. On top of that is the fact that there is a new national security strategy. Now, moving forward in the next 2 years or thereabout, we're putting all of this together. What would you be recommending? What would be your expectations?
First, I will be looking at a national security strategy that will include peace building. I mean, if you look at the Ghanaian security strategy, national security strategy, It has peace building as a component, and that's one of the biggest components missing in our national security architecture. You know, situation where you're thinking more kinetic around a lot of things you're doing, you may not be getting to the root of the problem. So I think peace building should be a big section that we should be looking at, especially where things do not really need kinetic approach, where it needs just roundtable discussion, bringing to the people inside the room, having a one-on-one discussion, especially those ones that are not ideological driven, especially those ones where the people are just asking, bring us into the room, remove issues of exclusion. We are part of the country. All we want is acceptance. This is one Nigeria. Those ones, we know them, and we need to be honest about it. And that's why I keep saying that Nigerian elites have refused to gamble on peace. That's one. Two, we should start looking at those religious indoctrination going on in this country. Why are we shying away from it? Incidentally, I have to mention this on national TV, and this is around the northern part of the country. We have a lot of religious indoctrination that are coming into this country from Saudi Arabia. So we know this. And the question is, why is Saudi Arabia now fighting against those indoctrination in their own country? And they found their way into West Africa. We know those religious sects that we don't want. My question is, why do we have our elite from the north keeping quiet about this? If Saudi do not want it, if Egypt do not want it, why are we accommodating it? We know that they are the ones part of this indoctrination and part of the thing fueling some of the radicalism that we have in northern part of the country. We need to work on that. Then if you go to the other part of the country, like the southeast, the elite from the southeast should stand up against issues of secession, speak against it, and stand on those things that do not bring this kind of violent conflict within the communities. I mean, if you look at this kind of things, this is where I expect the Nigerian state, mark my word, I didn't say the government here. I said the Nigerian state, meaning all the institutions of the state to provide that leadership, from the police to the military to the civil service. All the institutions of the state should provide that leadership so that we should start tackling this. I mean, that would be my submission to this.
All right. So, Dr. Okoro, what would be your recommendation to government moving forward?
Well, security, what fuels security is actually bad governance. So we need to look at our governance system, particularly for President Tinubu. My recommendation would be that he needs to come up with policies that will put money in the pocket of the people, because it is the absence of employment, of gainful employment, or resources that will make young people to join crime and terrorists and criminality. So if there are big projects like agricultural projects, right, that will enable people to earn money and have hope, not every youth will be willing to take money and join these criminals at any given time.
Mokhtar, how do you negotiate or indeed reason or build peace with persons that you cannot identify and cannot speak to?
So it's a kind of unconventional strategy, since you don't know the one and you can't speak to him. I think look at the grievances. What are his grievances? When you look at them, extract them and influence, are they something that can be negotiated? For example, like this kind of extremists, the Boko Haram and ISWAF, they are calling for Islamic State. But if you look at the situation of Nigeria, we are a heterogeneous country, where there is, we are multi-ethnic and multi-religious, as well as, so I don't think their demand, like kind of thing they are demanding for, that is their main ideology. So I don't think this kind of demand could be met. So I think the best way is for the government to address the root causes, because if as far as we continue to fight this terrorism without addressing the root causes that bring their emergence, this problem cannot be solved.
They can only reason with people that are reasonable.
Yes.
When we have a group of persons that are unreasonable, how do you reason with them? How do you build peace in that kind of situation? It's a catch-22 phrase.
That's why you need states. That's why you need the power of the states. That is where the coercive power of any country comes in, because we cannot continue to plead and beg or kowtow to people whose intent is to destroy your country. You apply the maximum capacity of government to crush these forces.
All right.
The military.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Let's leave it at that. We hope that those who are in a position to take action are watching and are listening, and that in the next 2 years, before the 2027 elections, we should have real peace in every part of Nigeria. Mukhtar Madobi is a research fellow at the Center for Crisis Communication. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Dr. Ndu Nwokolo joined us virtually. He is the managing partner, Nestia, an international development consulting firm. Thank you so much, Dr. Nwokolo, for your time.
Thank you for having me.
All right, and right here in the studio, Dr. David Okoro, who is the Chief Security Strategist at the International Institute for Security and Governance Studies. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Right, that's our program for today. Please join us again when we bring you a fresh edition of People, Politics, and Power. Thank you for investing your time with us. Bye for now.